So yes, you read the title correctly. It's not clickbait. I did get a rhinoplasty or a nose job, and let's talk all about it. Just to get a couple things out of the way, I had my surgery done December 19th. This is actually crazy. I'm about 2 weeks post-op, and I do have a little bit of makeup on, but for the most part, I didn't really have any bruising or major swelling, and that's pretty much how I looked before the surgery. I also did get like a real traditional rhinoplasty, so I had an open one, so I do have a scar. That's what it looks like, folks. I also want to answer all the questions when it comes to cost, when it comes to my doctor, where I went, because online, that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. So I'll tell you up front, my estimate was $11,285. Yeah, this is a lot of money. Yeah, I'm going to talk more about it and kind of the breakdown of the cost if y'all are curious, but wanted to get those questions out of the way. I know it's a little hypocritical that I got this and I'm talking about it because throughout my time on social media, my big thing is I always wanted to be like that normal face you see while you're scrolling through Instagram or through TikTok. So everyone else is, using all these filters and these retouching, airbrushing all their pores, have a full face of makeup. I wanted to be like that normal girl you see online, and I still think I am. I still don't use filters. I still don't really wear makeup. I feel like especially during the pandemic, we see more people through our screen than we do in real life. And when you see all these people online who don't have pores, who don't have texture, who don't have, hyperpigmentation, and you think that's what's normal, and then you look in the mirror and you don't have that, it's very easy to feel like there's something wrong with you. I still stand by everything I've said. I don't think that plastic surgery should be as normal as it is now. Same with fillers. Just so normal that getting filler and Botox is just getting your nails done. I think there's a fine line between normalizing something versus putting information out there. And personally, while I was researching the rhinoplasty, it was really hard to get the perspective of normal everyday girls going through this process. A lot of it is these huge influencers and celebrities, and I'm not like that. I'm still in college. I'm still working my hourly job, making $15 an hour. Yeah, I really wanted to talk about a rhinoplasty or plastic surgery from the perspective of a normal everyday person. Yeah, I guess let's talk about it. I know there's gonna be a lot of criticism. I've noticed that, when white girls get plastic surgery, it's a lot of oh,
this is self-love, do what you want to do. You only live once, might as well look your hottest.
But then when ethnic girls get plastic surgery, the response is just never as positive.
Oh, you're trying to be white, you're whitewashing yourself, you're embarrassed of your ethnicity, you're being a bad role model.
So I know already that there's going to be a lot of criticism, and I do think a lot of it is valid. I'm super open to having discourse in the comments. At the end of the day, it's already done. I know people are going to comment that they preferred my old nose, I looked better before, but I just encourage you to watch the whole video, and at the end of the day, it's already done. If you like my old nose better, it sucks because I can't go back, and the changes I made were very minor, so it still looks pretty similar to what I had before. I liked my old nose. It was the nose that God gave me, and I lived 21 years of my life with it. I'm so grateful for it. It did its job, and now we have something new. So that's my nose before the surgery. I've always really liked it. It's really cute. I just wanted it to be a little bit more refined. Also, I know I haven't really shared much about this process online, and that's because I really wanted it to be my decision. I'm very new to social media, and I'm still in the phase where hate comments really affect me. I'm very easily influenced by other people. So when it came to doing permanent work on my face, I really wanted to make sure that all my opinions were my own and I wasn't getting too caught up in what other people were thinking. So I literally didn't share anything about it until after I got it done.
Honestly, I feel great. I don't feel anything, so that's a good sign.
I know it took a lot of people by surprise, but I promise it was not an impulse decision. So this is the first year that I really started doing social media. And before this, I didn't even have Instagram. I never took pictures. I wasn't really that aware of what I looked like. But after doing social media and, editing videos of yourself for hours and hours and hours, there's just little things about my face that I started to notice and started to nitpick. Some things were stuff that other people were told me, and other things were just things that I noticed on my face were different than other people's, or little asymmetries that I noticed. I spent a lot of this year, I would just research different surgeries and procedures, which sounds really sad. In a way it was, but yeah, I would just research things, and for the most part, I feel a lot of these things had way more cons than they did pros. I thought about lip filler for a while to make my top lip a little bit bigger. The more research I did, I was just I feel it doesn't really look that good on anyone. I feel most people looked better with their natural lips. Kind of one of those things where I was really able to talk myself out of and be girl, you do not need that. But when it came to a rhinoplasty, I felt I have a pretty detailed eye, and I really noticed that every time people were getting minor adjustments to their nose, It was really kind of balancing their whole face overall, which was my goal into getting the surgery. For me personally, I really liked my nose before. I don't think it like really stuck out in any major way. It was, you know, a pretty normal nose. It was small, it was cute, it was straight, it wasn't crooked. I kind of wanted to be like, when people saw me again, I wanted them to be like,
oh, you look better, or oh, you look different.
but them not necessarily be able to pinpoint that it's my nose that changed. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that was kind of the goal. I wanted everything to look more balanced. And from my research, it seems like a nose is a pretty good place to start because, you know, it's the center of your face. When we think of nose jobs, I feel like a lot of times we think of these extreme transformations, but it's speculated that like pretty much every like celebrity, like even like Hailey Bieber, who, you know, her nose is still crooked. It's still like it's not like the traditional upturned Bella Hadid nose, but it fits her face really well. And it's speculated that even she had plastic surgery just to make it, you know, a little bit thinner and more refined, which is kind of what I was going for. And I live in Utah, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but Salt Lake City happens to be like a really big hub for plastic surgery. So I was like, you know what, I live here, I might as well schedule like a consultation and just see what the doctors say. So that's what I ended up doing. So I had my surgery done at Utah Facial Plastics. These are the 3 doctors that they have. They're all really good, they're all really experienced. And then I scheduled a consult. For my consultation, I paid $150. I initially consulted with one doctor and then I consulted with another doctor, and both of those consultations were covered by that $150 that I paid. The first doctor that I consulted with, I won't say his name. I really liked him. I just felt like we weren't as much on the same page about the changes that I wanted. All the advice for consultations is you shouldn't really talk, and you should kind of let your doctor talk and see like what his initial thoughts are. And sometimes if you're the only one talking, it seems like you're really on the same page because your doctor is just agreeing with everything you're saying. You know, you really want to get their input first. They are the experts. So my first doctor, he was suggesting that I do like a graft from my ear and kind of build out the nose.
And this is like the image rendering he gave me. On the left is the before and the right is the after.
Which again, like everyone has a different eye. Everyone prefers something different. But for me personally, like after seeing the pictures, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And I feel like it didn't really fit my face. I just ended up consulting with another doctor who I really ended up liking.
And this is a before and after he came up with. I was surprised at how subtle the changes were, but I really liked it, and I feel like it still fit my face and looked like my nose, just a little better.
Like aesthetically, he understood more about what I wanted, so I ended up going with Dr.Manning from Utah Facial Plastics.
And these are both the renderings back to back. I think it's so interesting how different doctors really do have different approaches.
He was amazing, can't say enough good things. And I really like that both of my doctors, I never felt pressured to like book my nose job. Even during the consultations, it was always like,
you know, your nose is so beautiful, it's so cute. Like, people come in here and pay to have a nose that looks like yours.
I never felt pressured to, you know, like get the surgery. I never like felt bad about it. One thing I really liked about the doctors I consulted with is they do a lot of rhinoplasties, but they also do a lot of stuff for the face in general. I think all the doctors, you know, do filler, they do brow lifts, facelifts, like all that sort of stuff, which personally for me was important because I wanted my whole face to look more balanced. And you know, if the nose wasn't the right thing to fix, I wanted them to be able to say, you know, more than fixing your nose, it'd be better if, you know, like we deprojected your chin. Or I really wanted someone that was experienced, but at the same time, they weren't like shoving surgeries down my throat, which I really liked. I basically told them my concerns and he was like, yes, I think a nose job would be really good. And it would kind of give you that subtle change you're asking for and really balance everything out. I did consider a liquid rhinoplasty or a non-surgical nose job, which is basically where they inject filler in your nose. This is kind of a newer technique, but everything online looks like people have really good results. But I decided not to go with it, mainly because of the cost. Even though initially it is cheaper, that filler dissolves. And you know, if you're constantly getting it touched up, like 5 or 6 non-surgical rhinoplasties later, you pretty much have paid for a nose job. And also for my nose, we could have maybe lifted the tip a little bit with filler, but I didn't really have a hump or anything, so it wouldn't have really benefited it that much.
Also, a lot of people don't understand that the non-surgical rhinoplasty is also super risky. You have like a lot of nerves and blood vessels in your nose, and if any of those are accidentally injected with filler, you can get permanent numbness or like necrotic tissue, so be really careful.
So I decided to go on just for the full-on rhinoplasty, which is still crazy. I can't believe I did it. And to give you a cost breakdown, this is literally from their price quote sheet. So basically for a nose job, like at least at Utah Facial Plastics, there's 3 main fees. You have your doctor's fee, you have the facility fee, and you have the anesthesia fee. So the doctor's fee was $10,000. This doesn't change, like any type of nose job you get, any changes you make, it's pretty much the same amount. So it's $10,000. And I actually, at the time, they were offering like a little bit of a discount if you went with Dr. Manning. It was $9,000 for that because they were doing a 10% discount. And then there was the anesthesia fee, which again also doesn't change. So the anesthesia fee was $880. And then there was also facility fees, which is basically booking the OR. And this does change depending on how long you booked it. So my surgery was booked for 3.5 hours is what they estimated. So my total was $11,285. And I did get a little bit of a discount because I agreed to like post some content for them. It's a very expensive procedure.
So that's the sheet they gave me. Obviously, I blocked out any personal info.
I asked if there were like ways to save costs, but again, like that $10,000 that you're paying for the doctor, or in my case $9,000, that doesn't really change. So if you got like maybe a little bit less done, you would save on the OR fees, but you know, like the big chunk of it, you are still going to be paying a ton of money. So another thing to consider is like the first time you're getting your nose job is the cheapest, because if you ever decide to get a revision later, revision rhinoplasties just cost a lot more, because when they're opening you up, they don't know what the other doctor has done. They don't know, you know, what type of scar tissue you have going on in there. So revision rhinoplasties a lot of the time are like double the cost. You know, whatever changes, I was like, I'll get it done right the first time. And it was very expensive, which is why I think a lot of people prefer to go like to Turkey or overseas. It's very common. When I was looking online, I was finding more experience from people that had gone to like Turkey than I had people who had done it in the US. And I can totally see why in Turkey it's like $4,000, sometimes less, to get the full nose job, to get your flights and everything covered. I decided not to do that because, for one, I knew I was going to share about my experience online, and it didn't sit right with me to encourage people to go to a foreign country to get like a surgical procedure when it seems like the main benefit is the cost that people are saving. Also, the doctors in Turkey are a lot more experienced. They do like a much higher volume of rhinoplasties. But another thing is, you know, like the consultation process. I really wanted to have an in-person consultation. And a lot of times if you're doing it overseas, your consultation is like 1 or 2 days before your actual surgery, which is crazy to me because when I was doing my consult, I wasn't even sure I was going to do a rhinoplasty. And from my experience, it seems like the doctors in Turkey, they just like specialize in one thing. So it's like, you know, if you book for a rhinoplasty, they're only going to tell you about your nose. And, you know, maybe you don't really want to get your nose done. And I feel like at that point, if you've already paid the money to be in Turkey, you're like, I don't know. So for me personally, I just wanted to do it like local to me. That's what I felt the most comfortable. I wanted doctors who had experience with other facial stuff, not just nose jobs, because I wanted my whole face to look balanced.
Like, even just scrolling through their Instagram, you can see that they do a lot of rhinoplasties, but they also do a lot of other procedures, which made me feel more comfortable when booking.
And also, I've looked at like before and after photos of Turkey, and like no shade, but you know when influencers are like, oh, I got my nose done? I feel like you can tell when it was done in Turkey, because a lot of the nose jobs in Turkey, my doctor also said this, they have like the same look. You know, they're all like the very like sharp slope, they're very upturned. They have like a very distinct look to them, and they all kind of look the same.
And for me, when I was looking at Utah facial plastics, I felt like they had a wide variety of noses, and all the noses they did look really natural and are really customized to the individual, so I really liked that.
And for me personally, I really wanted something that still looked similar to my old nose and really worked with like the anatomy that I had. And I felt like my doctors that I consulted with both really understood that. So after booking my consultation, my very first consultation was October 31st. It was Halloween. And then I booked another consultation with Dr. Manning, who I ended up going with, I think, like 1 week later. So I had the 2 consultations, and then I booked my surgery date for December 19th. So I had the initial consultation, which was more about like the aesthetics and deciding if I even wanted to get it done. And once I finalized and booked the surgery date, I had an appointment that was a little bit closer to the surgery, and that was more of the technicalities of like exactly what to expect, like what type of medications I needed to pick up. So yeah, I had my surgery December 19th. It's kind of funny because I had finals all the way up until Friday, and then I had the weekend, and I had my surgery on Monday. So I kind of didn't really process anything until my surgery, which I think is good. So I went in for my surgery Monday morning, just followed the instructions. There were some medications that I was taking like a week before my surgery, which were like antibiotics. And there was one I took right before my surgery, like an anti-bruising one. My surgery was 10 a.m. Did my before photos again. And I think it's kind of funny because the anesthesia doctor came in and he was like, okay, I'm going to do the needle. And I was like, wait a minute. The last time I had my blood drawn, it took like 2 hours. And he was like, oh, it took 2 hours to draw your blood. And I was like, no, it took 2 hours and then they kicked me out because I am terrified of needles. So we ended up doing like the gas thing. And all I remember is them saying, put the gas on. It might smell a little bit weird. So I put the gas on. And then I remember them telling me to lay down. And I don't remember anything. I woke up. I was a little loopy when I woke up after the surgery. I didn't really feel any pain.
I feel great. I just feel like I woke up from a nap.
All I did the first day is I went home and I slept.
This is the first time seeing my new nose. Ow, this is like stuck on there. Ouch. Oh.
I personally wasn't doing like a very major change to my nose, so I think that's maybe why I didn't have that harsh of a recovery.
And no black eyes, just a little bit of swelling.
My doctor, Dr. Manning, he said also like bruising is a lot of luck, and I guess he's been very lucky because a lot of his patients haven't had a lot of bruising. So yeah, I didn't really have any bruising under my eyes. I had a lot of swelling here. In terms of what I actually got done to my nose, I actually asked my doctor to explain like the technicalities of everything.
Hi, I'm here with Dr. Manning, about to go in for surgery.
We're starting from a really good spot with her nose. So again, we are making very small, fine refinements, and we're going to bring down the bump a little bit here. We're going to take the tip of the nose here and make it a little bit more refined, a little more petite, move it in towards the face just a little bit. If we need to, we're going to adjust the nostril size in this dimension and in the width this way, if you're looking up from the bottom, and try to bring, again, the bump down to the point to where it's just a little bit lower than the tip, so that there's a nice super tip break, a nice difference between the back part of the nose and the tip of the nose.
So my nose, we deprojected it just a little bit, and that just helped us create like a more even curve. So we did curve it out a little bit. We did bring in the nose bridge just a little bit to make it like a little bit tighter and more straight. And then we lifted the tip, and we also brought in the nostrils. A lot of the nose jobs I've seen online, the things I didn't like is I felt like doctors sometimes were so focused on how it looks from the side, which it looked great from the side, but then front on, I wasn't always a fan. And I feel like especially the nostrils looked really weird sometimes. So that's like one thing I was like, I really want my nostrils to look good. And I think they did a really good job. It's still a little bit more upturned than it's going to be in the final, but I'm really happy with it. I still feel like it looks very natural. Obviously, it's only been 2 weeks, so there is a lot of swelling. I also had an open rhinoplasty, which when you have a rhinoplasty, they can do it closed where there's no incision, and they basically do an incision on the inside of the nose and take care of everything. And then open is where they cut it here, and then they completely open it up and do it that way. They both are good options. A lot of people don't want to have the scar, so they only want a closed operation. But for me personally, I feel like the scar was pretty minimal and like no one would really be looking at it. So I kind of was just open to whatever the doctor I went to said. And I think both my doctors only do open rhinoplasties because they really focus on like the structure of the nose. And it's really hard to focus on that structure when you can't see all the anatomy. The healing is supposed to be a little bit worse. And even for that, I feel like my healing was not bad at all. My septum was slightly deviated, which a lot of people's is, so my doctor did end up straightening that out a little bit. I actually do feel like I'm breathing better, which is crazy because it's still only been 2 weeks and I'm probably still really clogged up, but I already feel like my breathing is better than it was before I went in for the surgery. And then another thing is a lot of doctors have you like tape the tip. And my doctor, you don't have to do that because he puts so much like structure and support in the tip that you don't really have to do anything for it. A lot of the times, if the tip is not supported, you kind of have to tape it up to like hold it at night. And it also, the taping like reduces the swelling. So yeah, that was my experience. I know again, a lot of people are going to comment that they liked it better before, that I should have kept my old nose. And I think it's still very similar. I think when people say they like my old nose, I take it as a compliment because the nose I have now is very similar to what I had before.
This is like the before and after transition they posted, and as you can see, it's really minor, but I feel like it does make a big difference.
I personally feel like my face looks a little bit more balanced. I feel a lot more confident like turning to the side, and doing things like that. I think it turned out really pretty. I still feel like it fits my face. My perspective is you just say no, 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 no. And the people that really want it and want to go through with it, they're going to do it regardless of what you think. So I would never encourage someone to get plastic surgery, but you know, if it's a decision that you've already made and you want to go through with, I want the information to be out there because it is a serious thing and I think you deserve to have all the facts before you go into it. Again, I know a lot of people will think that it's hypocritical. How can you preach self-love while also getting plastic surgery? And for me, I think there's a lot of things that it makes sense to learn how to love. Like my darker skin has always been one of them, like especially in South India, colorism is huge. Like when we watch movies, the actors all have super fair skin. If you go to like an Indian function or a wedding, the bride is always like 10 shades lighter, white foundation on. And I think a lot of like beauty standards like that, it makes sense to deconstruct and it makes sense to learn to love. And you know, I have been learning to love my darker skin. I have been learning to like, you know, love and normalize my hyperpigmentation, my two-tone lips. But then personally for me, I felt like when it came to my nose, it wasn't necessarily that I hated it or that I didn't like it. Like it was still like a very conventionally attractive nose. I just felt like the little changes I could make, they would just really balance out the rest of my face. And I think it makes sense to learn to love certain features, but at the same time, if there's a change you can make, especially if you're someone that is like very concerned with your appearance and, you know, are looking at yourself for hours a day, I think it can make sense to do something that makes you feel a little bit more confident. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I know I've kind of brushed over the recovery bit, but that's because I'm going to do a whole nother video talking about the recovery, talking about the pain, talking more about like what medications I was on, what I was able to eat, and like difficulties I ended up having. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. It's been really weird because I never really got comments on my nose before. And now to get so many comments of people being, even people being like, I love your nose, it's still really weird because it's just something that I was used to people not talking about. Oh, also, a lot of people were asking me what my parents thought about the nose job. They're obviously they don't like it. They don't support it. They thought I was beautiful before. They went with me to my consultations. My parents were able to see that these were just a few minor changes and my nose looks very similar, but it really does give a little bit more balance to my entire face. My mom was really concerned about like the actual surgery part, like me going under and then like even now when I'm like, oh, like this hurts about my nose, she gets so sad and she doesn't want me to be in pain. They saw like why it kind of made sense to do. Not that like a nose job ever makes sense, but yeah. I'm kind of just rambling, but let me know what questions you guys have. I really do want to be transparent about the entire process because online it's really hard to find information. So I really wanted something that was current and up to date. Yeah, I'm very open. I'm happy to talk about anything. I know again there will be a lot of criticism and I'm very open to it. I'm open to learning. Yeah, I'm really happy with my results. I can't go back to my old nose, so maybe just keep that in mind when you're commenting. As always, thank you guys. Bye!